out. To speak out. And specifically this morning, Luke's asked me to talk about speaking out for the orphan. Ever happened to the missionaries of old who used to literally pack all their things, not into a suitcase, but into a coffin because they were willing to die for a cause. They were willing to die for something that they believed obviously had died for them. They didn't care what the cost. See, when we stay in the comfort of our church, I believe that it will limit you. If you stay in the comfort of your church, it will limit you. And Dr. John Andrews, who I've had the privilege of meeting over the last 12 months, always says that if we don't go, we won't grow. And I love that. If we don't go, we won't grow. You see, this time last year, I was on a bit of a Debbie Downer, and I was off work for a number of different reasons, and there was loads of other stuff going on. And I was out jogging, and like you do when you're on a bit of a Debbie Downer, you have a bit of a grumble, and I'm grumbling away to God like, God, what is your mandate for my life? You know, like we've all done it. You know, God, tell me what you want me to do. And I just started on this sort of train of thought that, like, if I could strip away everything that God had ever said or ever done for me, which I would never do, by the way. And I started all over afresh, what would God say to me? And I did feel like God dropped into my heart, well, okay, we're here, Janine. What would you say to you if you were me? And I just found myself saying this, well, it would be to be your hands and feet on the earth, right? Well, yeah. It would be to be Jesus' hands and feet to the broken, to the poor, to the hungry, to the orphan. You know, we really can do enough just to get that eternal ticket to get into heaven. Because that's God's grace and that's God's mercy. You really can just do enough to get that eternal ticket. But don't you want more? Don't you want more? Don't you want to experience what God can do, his fullness, what he can do through you? See, I certainly do. And we read this amazing kind of little rendition in Matthew where Jesus is speaking to his disciples and he's saying this. He's saying, for when you saw me hungry, you fed me. When you found me thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I had no place to stay, you invited me in. And when I was poorly clothed, you covered me. When I was sick, you tenderly cared for me. And when I was in prison, you visited me. And then the godly will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty? And if you jump down a little bit, it says, and the king will answer them, don't you know when you cared for one of the least important of these, my little ones, my true brothers and sisters, you demonstrated a love for me. Don't you want to experience God's love for others? You know, God's heart is very much for the orphan. It's a theme throughout the whole Bible. You know, he's a father to the fatherless. You know, it's everywhere. His heart is so much for the orphan. And you know, God is our Father. We talk about him as our Father, and he longs that no one be orphaned. He longs that no one be abandoned or orphaned. And it says in Galatians that he can adopt us as his very own children. You know, God's perfect design of the family is that there's a father and there's a mother bringing up a child. And they're there to nurture them and encourage them and bring them up and put food in their bellies and a roof over their head and to help them to flourish and be secure and then to go out into the world. And when they get sad, to bring them back under their wing again and then send them out again and to discipline them. And that is just such a perfect mirror image of God and what he wants to be to us. See, God's great, isn't he? He's got this perfect mirror image of who he is in family. And when that breaks down, that's when God's heart is completely broken. You know, and we see so much of that all over the Bible. You know, I understand that hang on a second. The gospel is actually wants that we were all emptied and orphaned. And we've been adopted into God's family. And therefore, to care for the orphan is very much on the heart of God. Very much on the heart of God. And I understand today, you know, as well, that it's actually a beautiful continuation of the redemption story of Jesus. It really is. And I understand that it's a can be quite a sensitive subject as well. You know, there's probably people in here who perhaps you have been orphaned, or maybe you've had parents and then you've grown up, and as time's gone on, they've passed on from this life and you've felt orphaned. I know that can be a feeling as you get older. And do you know also that you don't necessarily have to be an orphan to feel like an orphan either. You know, when that design of what God's perfect design of the family is doesn't necessarily work for you, that's when you can feel like an orphan, when perhaps you've had parents but they've not been that perfect design to you and you've not felt that. And I want to be aware of that this morning. And the amazing thing about God is that he says in his word that God sets the lonely in families. And our church has a huge core value on family, that we want to be family. That's one of our core values. And so let us be that to you today. Let us be family to you. Are you in labor? Good. Let us be that to you. Let us speak out for you. Let us speak out for you. Let us get you into a life group. Let us get you into, introduce you to friends and family. You know, if you need to get counseling, we can organize that for you. We can do all that for you. Let us be family to you. God's heart is very much for the orphan. It's all through the Bible. Loads and loads of verses, and one of the most famous verses and a real challenging verse for me is in James 1 verse 27. It says, true spirituality that is pure and faultless in the eyes of our Father God is to make a difference in the lives of orphans and widows in their troubles and refuse to be corrupted by the world's values. Hey, there it is. You want to be spiritual? You want to be pure and faultless before the throne of God? There it is. Just simply to have the same heart as God's, to care for the orphan and the widow. That's all you need to do. You don't have to go to Bible school. You don't have to wear a robe or pray 6 times a day. No, it's right there. You don't have to be perfect. You literally just to have the same heart as God has, and that is to care for the orphan and the widow in their time of trouble. It's there, right there in black and white, to be true spirituality. You know, in this day and age when God looks down on the earth and he sees all the awfulness that's going on, can you imagine? Can you imagine being God and looking down on the earth and seeing everything, all the abuse, all the abandonment, all the awful stuff, the violence, the wars, the just awfulness of stuff that's going on in this world, and he just doesn't see it as it's reported on either. He sees it in real time. You know, it's like when we scroll past that post on Facebook about street children in Cambodia because you're having a good day today and you don't want to get upset. You know, I've done it. We've all done it. You know, oh, no, I can't be doing with that. I don't want that in my head. So you scroll past it. But you know what? God's got a constant stream of Facebook posts because God's got Facebook, right? You know, constantly going through all the time. He never turns off to it. He's seeing it all the time. And he just doesn't even see it as it's reported on either like we do. He sees it in real time. So he's right there as the abuse and the abandonment is going on. He's in that moment right there, and his heart is breaking all the time. Could you imagine the burden that God would feel to look down on the earth? But you know what? It's okay, because God's got a plan. He's got a plan. Me and you. That's his plan. His plan is for us to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. He's got a plan. He's always got a plan. And we see this awesome story in the Bible about a great rendition of speaking out. And I read this week again in like 20 minutes because it's just awesome. And it's the story of Esther. And in Esther we see a young girl who is actually a Jew, and she's living as an exile in the land of Persia. And, to ask him where Susia was. And she is not only a Jew living in exile, she's also, an orphan. And I thought that was beautiful. She's actually an orphan. And she was taken into exile by her cousin. Her cousin took her under his wing to bring her up, and they were both taken into exile to live in the land of Persia. And on the throne in the land of Persia is a king called King Xerxes. And Xerxes. And he has a wife called Vashti, and one day he calls to her to come to him, and she says, "Nah, I can't be bothered." So he offs her. Can you imagine that? He's just done. You're not doing what I tell you, you're off. So he offs her, and he decides that he's going to choose from his own choosing a new queen from an array of beautiful young virgins. And they can go through a whole year's worth of beauty treatments to make them even more beautiful young virgins. Could you imagine going through a whole year's worth of beauty treatments? You could grow your hair long, you could lose weight, you could get a suntan. Hey, I wish I lived in them days. Awesome. Well, Esther, it says, is beautiful. And she is taken into this little harem of beautiful young virgins for the king to choose a new queen from. And she finds favor with the king. And he chooses her. It says that he is attracted to Esther more than any of the others. And he makes her queen. And Mordecai, her cousin, in the meantime, is sitting at the king's gate. I don't know why he does that, but he does. He's sitting at the king's gate. And during his time sitting there, he hears a conspiracy among the kerfuffle that someone is going to possibly go and kill the king. And there's a bit of a thing to kill him. So he reports it. He speaks out. He whistleblows, if you like. And this finds him favor with the king. And he honors him for it. And then a little bit further down the line, we hear about this official guy, one of the officials, who is promoted to most esteemed nobleman, and his name is Haman. And he becomes the most esteemed nobleman, and he's like the king's number 2, if you like, and everybody bows to him and gives him honor and gives him glory. And worships him almost. And it says that all the officials at the king's gate where Mordecai is sat honor him and give him honor. But Mordecai won't. And Haman knows where Mordecai comes from. And so out of Haman's need for exaltation, there's a preach in here somewhere. I'll get it one day. Out of his need for exaltation, he decides that he's going to have every single one of Mordecai's people massacred, murdered, and taken completely out in one day. So he makes a decree that he is going to do that. He's going to take out all of Mordecai's people purely because he would not bow to him. Wow. Could you imagine that? But Mordecai gets wind of this. And so he goes to Esther. And he asks Esther to go into the king's presence and beg and plead for mercy for this decree to be turned around. And Esther says this back to him. He sends a message to her, and Esther then sends a message back to Mordecai, which says this. I had to get my NIV out for this. So this is what he says. This is what she says. This is what she's saying back. It says, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court, now listen to this bit, without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they will be put to death until the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since the king asked me to come to him. How many of us have had the opportunity to do something for God, but we've not heard God on it? We didn't hear the king summon us, so we didn't do anything about it. You know, how many of us feel like we need a word or a poem or the Holy Spirit needs to move and the king needs to summon us, so we don't do it? You know, when I was in Kenya in December 2016, I think it was, I met a little boy, 3 years old, coming into the children's home, who had no shoes, ripped clothes, riddled with disease, and clinging to his older brother because he had no mother and father. And I didn't need to be summoned by the king. I didn't need to call a leadership meeting, didn't need to call the trustees on it. I didn't need to have a word or a poem or spend hundreds of hours in prayer. No, I just said, I will sponsor him. He's mine, I'll sponsor him. I'm on the phone to Andy like, I've met this little boy. He didn't even let me finish. He said, we'll sponsor him. He didn't need to be summoned by the king. You see, some of you feel like you need a word from God when actually maybe you just need to go and just do something for him. And Esther, she kind of says, she straight away, she's like, oh, no, I can't do that. That's going to cost me much. It's going to cost me my life. That will cost me much. I'm quite happy here in my boudoir, being all, beauty treatments and being a kept woman. That's going to upset the apple cart. I'm quite happy here in my house with my nice worship and my nice coffee and my nice preaching. So I don't want to do anything about that because it'll upset the apple cart. But actually, how many of us have said, oh, that'll cost me much? Or you might be thinking it's going to cost me much, that thing that I want to do. It might cost you time, it might cost you effort, it might cost you money, it might cost you your home, it might cost you a friendship, it might cost you a relationship, I don't know. But how many of us have said those, it's going to cost me much, it's going to cost me hours and hours of riddling over fear with that, so I don't do it. I don't do it. But Mordecai sends her this message back. It says, he doesn't give up. In I think we're verse 13, it says, do not think, this is what he's saying back to her, do not think that because you're in the king's house, you will escape. You're in the king's house. For you alone of all the Jews, do not think you will escape, for you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family will perish. Your father's family will perish. And who knows? Hey, listen, Mordecai gets it. He totally gets it. He says, and who knows that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? We have come to our royal position in Christ as Christians for such a time as this. You are perfectly positioned in this house to be for such a time as this, to go out into the world and speak out for that orphan, or to speak out for that foster child, or whatever it is that you feel like you might need to do. You are perfectly positioned. Some of you are perfectly positioned in your job. You're wondering why you're there. Like, why am I here? Maybe you need to speak out about something that's wrong that's going on in the workplace. Some of you are perfectly positioned in your family to make a difference and to bring Christ into a dark place. Some of you are perfectly positioned in your ministry to make a difference, for your heart to grow and blossom. We are perfectly positioned for such a time as this. She knew. She suddenly realizes, Esther, for the last 12 months she's been like, what am I doing here? I'm an orphan and I'm a Jew living in exile and I'm sitting in the king's house. Wow, could you imagine? A couple of weeks ago I stayed in the Hilton Hotel in Wembley with your sister. And I was like, oh, what am I doing here? I'm just a girl from Manchester. I've got 2 kids and a husband at home and I need to be working. What am I doing in the Hilton Hotel? It's a bit like that. She was like that. She's like, what am I doing here? What is going on? Hey, I'm a Jew. I'm in the king's house. But then suddenly she realizes, I know why I'm here. God's got a great way of doing that, hasn't he? I'm perfectly positioned for such a time as this. And she realizes and she says, even though it is against the law, even though it will cost me much, even though if I perish, I perish. If I perish, I perish. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to do this. I don't care what happens. I am perfectly positioned for such a time as this. And she goes and she speaks out and she wins favor with him. And she wins favor for that decree to be overturned. And therefore, she saves hundreds and millions of Jewish people living in the land of Persia from being massacred and murdered. And she was perfectly positioned for such a time as that to speak out. And so some of you are perfectly positioned. See, I struggle whenever I come back off the mission field, that I'm like, why have I got a 3-bedroom detached house with a nice garden? Who'll get you? Like, what? I'm so lucky to have even been born in a first world country, and I struggle with it. But I feel like I hear God on it, that actually I'm in a perfect position. And I have a responsibility in my perfect position to be able to go out. I've got a job, so I'm able to fund that. I've got a great church, so I'm planted in the house. You're perfectly positioned to go out into the world. Of the band. She spoke up for those who couldn't speak out for themselves, Esther. She didn't have to. She could have stayed, had a nice, easy life. She had it all going on for her. The looks, the beauty, the being kept woman in the king's house. But she could have lived just like us, just to get not like all of us, just to get our eternal ticket into heaven. But no, she said, if it costs me, it costs me. If I perish, I perish. I'm done now, but before I finish, I just wanted to take a moment just to explain to you a little story and share with you this. And a lot of you know that I've been involved with a charity out in Kenya we run a children's home out there. And we've just this week opened another children's home in Pakistan for slave children living in the brick factories. And amongst many other things in the world, other projects, we do lots of other stuff. And I wanted to share with you a story about how that came around. And it's headed up, the whole organisation called One by One, it's headed up by one of my best, beautiful friends, Becky Murray, who is the sister of Donna. And she was just on a short-term missions trip back in 2006, just a feeding project. And she met a little girl while she was doing the feeding project who was a street child, and she was only 9 years old. Her name was Felicity. And she met her while she was doing the feeding project, and she noticed that Felicity didn't have any shoes. So Becky went to the local market and just bought her a beautiful little pair of 50p flip-flops. 50p, and she gave them to her and spent the day playing with her and spending time with her. And then she said, we've got a gospel campaign in the evening, why don't you come back and we'll take you to the gospel campaign. So Felicity came back. And Becky said, okay, we're going to go now. We're going to get in the cars. And Felicity turns to Becky. She looks her dead in the eye. And she said, well, shan't I wait for you in your hotel room? And Becky said, no, honey, we're going. We're going to get in the cars now. And she turned again to Becky and said, no, shan't I wait for you in your hotel room? And Becky thought if she was saying this to my husband, I'd know what she meant. But she's saying this to a woman who is twice her age and a woman. So she asked her again for a third time, and sure enough, Felicity, who's only 9 years old, thought that she had spent 50p on her so that she could have her body. I have a 9-year-old girl at home. I could not even imagine what that little girl had gone through in those short few years of her life. For that to happen to her, for her to think that she was worth 50p. But actually, do you know what? Becky knew from that moment on that she had to do something. And for every child that she brings into the children's home, she sees Felicity's face in it. She does. And she knew no matter what the cost, and if she perished, but she was perfectly positioned in that moment to see that she had to speak out. She had to do something. And Luke has asked me, and it's cost Becky much, believe me, not just financially. Luke has asked me to head up the missions arm of the church, and we're going to go out to Chifubu, and we're going to try and do some sort of a feeding project there, and we're going to see what they need, and we're going to help them and see what they need help with, and we're going to try and bridge the gap there. But I want to challenge you today to come with me on that, because we're going to do this as a church. It's not just me. We're going to hopefully be taking a team out next year. We don't know what that looks like yet, but maybe you can come on that trip. Hey, it's just a week. It's a week out of your life. Come with me and let's bridge the gap. And I hear some of you saying, well, I can't do that. I can't go out to the outbacks of Africa, and I understand that. It's not for everyone. And so I just want to challenge you. I've just got something really small. I've got some profiles here of some of the children who live in the children's home in Kenya, where I've just been talking about, where I've been a fair few times now. I think I've been about 5. I think Donna's been about 18. And I know these kids. I've met them. They are orphans living in the children's home. And for a lot of you, it's just £18 a month, and that £18 gets them a roof over their head, 3 meals a day, and love, hope, and a future, and the salvation of Jesus. And a lot of you know that I was a terrible baby mom. You know, some of you got mandates over your life to be a mom, and that's great, God bless you. But it is weren't mine. And for a long time, I'd be out pushing my pram with my babies in it like, God, all I'm good for is changing nappies and wiping faces. And I was like, ugh. And I'm like, God, come on, what? Give me something. And God says, you are making a difference. Your £18 a month is making a difference. And we only had 1 child back then. We've now got 3 because I just can't resist them. You know, it makes a difference. So maybe some of you can't sponsor a child, but maybe there's someone in this room today who's felt touched by the idea of feeling orphaned. Perhaps you were, perhaps you feel orphans, perhaps you've been orphaned in your older, later life. Perhaps your parents weren't what they should have been to you. Maybe you can be an arm around the shoulder to pray for them. That is standing in the gap. That is being there for such a time as this.